Next matchup, not an SEC matchup, Shane, but this should be one hell of a game. If you missed it, go back and check it out. Steven Lassen on the last show said this should be the most competitive ball game of the week in the SEC, Shane. And, of course, I'm talking about your Volunteers going on the road to face Pitt in what is now a ranked showdown here, so I love to see that. Tennessee, of course, lost the game last season in Neyland Stadium, but they started Joe Milton in the game, and Hendon Hooker took over and rallied them. Just it was a little too late. Different story this year at the quarterback position. Pitt lost a ton, of course, star receiver, star quarterback, offensive coordinator. So this is a new look Pitt, very experienced, and this is a solid defensive team, Shane. Josh Heupel and Pat Narduzzi have faced off 3 times before. Narduzzi holds a 2-1 advantage. But it's great to have an offensive-minded guy and a defensive-minded guy. The strength of each team is exactly that. Tennessee's offense, Pitt's defense. This is going to be one hell of a matchup.
Yeah, it really will be. And of course, I don't really think it will be. But I'm a little bit of a homer when it comes to Tennessee football. And it's not so much that I just think Tennessee is that much better. I just think here you got a Tennessee team that I think is better than last year, and a Pitt team that is worse than they were last year. So I'm just putting those two together, and it's letting me know that this should not be a close ball game like it was last year. But I've been wrong. The one thing that I am worried about is the pressure. We didn't get to see a lot of it with Ball State, obviously, because that's who it was, but Pitt is going to pin their ears back. They are going to try to get pressure on Hooker. He wasn't required to run as much, and he didn't. Will he have to do that this week? And so there is a little bit of that concern going into Pitt week here. But, all in all, I think I'm playing with house money as a Tennessee Volunteer fan. So I think we got this one, and I'm not going to give my score away just yet. But I am not too worried about Pitt.
Right, and last year, of course, it turned into a little bit of a shootout with Hendon Hooker and the Pitt quarterback. I've already forgotten his damn name, but he's the Steelers quarterback. Kenny Pickett was his name.
Kenny Manning.
Yeah, exactly. Peyton, I forgot Peyton's best friend
Peyton's
up there.
nephew, yeah.
But, you got to feel a lot more confident, Shane, if this matchup turns into a shootout because they got Keaton Slovis, who I hear he's good things about him, but he ain't going to be no Heisman finalist and a first-round pick. Basically what I'm trying to say here, I'm stumbling through it, but Tennessee's got a major advantage at this game's most important position, which has also got to give you more confidence heading into this important matchup.
Absolutely, and there was a few things that Tennessee needed to work on going into this week, and I hope they've addressed that. I'm sure they have. But, I will say this, too. There's got to be something said that, Pitt was in a fight last week with West Virginia.
Yeah.
Barely came out alive there. There was no hiding anything in the playbook. They threw it all at West Virginia. Here's Tennessee, though. They didn't have to show anything. Very, very, very vanilla. We got Milton in there. We got plenty of reps with other guys in there. So I think there's, a little bit of an advantage for Tennessee given the fact that they didn't fight for their life, and it gives them more time and less film study for Pitt. Less film you put out there, less they can study. So I think there's an added benefit there as well. But again, this is a tougher test than Ball State. So you can't come in just thinking you're going to steamroll a team, because if you come in too confident like Shane is, then you may get your ass beat. You may get your teeth knocked in, So there's a fine line, and I hope that Heupel and crew, discover it, because, I was speaking high on Tennessee last year. There was no reason we shouldn't beat Pitt, and then we walked away from the game. I was thinking, man, we shouldn't have lost to that team. So we can't come in with that approach. We really got to come in here focused and dialed in, because a few bad mistakes or a few 3 and outs, and next thing you know, you're down a couple of scores. So,
any concern though, Shane? Like you said in the Ball State game, no sacks in that ball game. Maybe they were playing it a little vanilla, like you said, but as I understand it, Pitt's returning their entire offensive line, so you got to imagine there's a strength of this team. Any level of concern there?
Wait, a Pitt's offensive line or
versus Tennessee defensive line that didn't get a sack against Ball State?
Yeah, I am. I'm a little. I mean, obviously, you need to be a little bit worried about that pressure, but a team that allows Tennessee to run their offense, I'm not so worried about the running game.
Yeah.
I know that's crazy, but that's going to be their goal, is to slow Tennessee down. They do that by running, extending drives, just keep the chains moving. Fake injuries, expect that with Pitt. That's just a few things that they're going to do to try to slow down and knock Tennessee off their cadence. But I'm not super worried about it because, again, we didn't show a lot defensively either. I'm sure there was a lot of blitz that weren't dialed up. I'm sure there was, they were trying to just work out their rotation, it felt like at times. So, again, I'm not super worried about that. I think, we're going to get a little bit more aggressive defense and play calling this coming up week, just given the fact that they were so vanilla in their defense and offense last week.
We say the SEC's a line of scrimmage league. When you look at Pitt, their front seven defensively, their offensive line, how do they compare at the line of scrimmage from what you usually face in the SEC?
Yeah, this is a veteran group that plays extremely hard. They're physically mature. They play with great technique. The structure of their defense, I don't care what personnel grouping or what formation you're playing in, they're going to load it up and play with extra bodies in there. So they make it difficult to run the football. You guys know for us, offensively, it starts with our ability to run the football. So that'll be a pivotal part of the football game.
Josh, I know it was just one game, but when you watch that Pitt defense, kind of what do they do well? What jumps off the tape whenever you're evaluating?
Yeah, they gave up a couple of big runs, just misfit a couple things, but overall they make it extremely difficult. Their front four are strong, physical, athletic. Their ability to get to the quarterback on normal downs, but then on third downs too, where they'll try to scheme you up. They're veteran on the outside. We've seen these guys, a couple of the last times that we've played them, and it'll be a big test for us offensively. Last year's ball game, we can take away things. One, personnel. Some of the guys are different, but some of them are the same, so you have a better understanding of who they are against some of our personnel. The other thing is just understanding, the type of game that's going to be played, meaning that they're smart, tough, and competitive, and the little things are going to add up to the big things that show up on the scoreboard. And we got to do a great job of taking care of the football. We got to find a way to create turnovers. Special teams will be a huge part of the football game. Field position is as well, and maximizing our opportunities.
Coach Hendon tied for what I believe is the second most consecutive games with a passing touchdown in program history. I believe he's at 13 now. Can you just talk a little bit about what makes him such an aerial threat and what makes him such an experienced quarterback out there? He's able to find his receivers.
Yeah, he would tell you, and I would tell you too, that happens because of the guys out on the perimeter finding a way to get open, because of the guys up front doing a great job in protection. He's someone that has continued to grow just in our understanding of what we're doing, and so his ability to be in the right place so that he's finding the one-on-one and man-to-man or in zone coverage, he's finding the right area to attack, gives him the ability to get it in the playmaker's hands. He's smart, he's competitive, he's consistent in his work habits. Expect that to continue to grow as he's here this year.
Yeah, and I'll have my eye on the secondary, Shane. That was a major concern coming into the season. Kamal Haddon, I thought he looked great at corner. To Marion McDonald, he was the one that made the interception right off the bat. But this is a different challenge, obviously, with Pitt. So how will that group look, particularly if the defensive line does not generate pressure? Because I don't care who you got back here, they're not going to look too good if the quarterback has got all day to throw the ball. So that is something I'll definitely have my eye on. But to your point, Shade, Pitt may be worse, Tennessee better. And it's wild. This game's at Pitt. They won last year. They're ACC champs. Yet they're the underdog in the ball game. So that goes right to your point. And that's something old Pat Narduzzi, Shade, he was all fired up about this week, saying that we play in the Pee Wee leagues.
I'd like to block out the outside noise, but you guys are an underdog at home against a team you beat last year, coming off a year in which you won your conference championship. You might block out the noise, but is that a chip that you guys might play? I mean,
you know what? To me, you like to be the underdog every week. I don't even know what the point spread was last week. We were probably the underdog last week at home. I know our crowd was the underdog for sure going into that game. But it is what it is. It's it's a good football team coming in here, you know. I mean, you heard all summer about the SEC, and there's only really 2 Power 5 conferences in the country: the SEC and the Big Ten. So we're in the Pee Wee League, and we're going to line up and see if we can play.
I just wanted to play that quick clip, Shay, but
it's
hilarious. I mean, he's got a point. I'm sure that's posted all over the locker room, but hey, it is what it is. I mean, that's kind of the reality of the situation. You know what?
Get that Rodney Dangerfield. You ain't getting no respect, you know. No, you ain't getting no. Eat shit, Pitt. That's what I say, you know. But brother, I'm ready for this ball game. This Johnny Majors Classic. Yeah. One of the greatest coaches of all time. You know, you got to remember this is what it's going to be talked about. Unfortunately, passed away. So this has a deep meaning in the game. But these are 2 programs we played last year. So there's a lot of kids on both rosters that are familiar with who they're going against this week, so that adds a little bit to it. So I'm just pumped up. I'm ready for this game. I'm ready to see how good is Tennessee. I know that sounds crazy, but it's tough to compare Ball State with anybody right now. You walk away from Pitt with a 20, 30-point victory, then people around the country are going to take notice of what's going on there in Knoxville.